Well, a couple of things I forgot in my earlier video. I was telling you on that TV. Now I'll probably just take it apart, save the boards, save there's two little speakers in there. I'll save those. I got a project I probably use those on. I've got a handful of those TVs that I've found tossed, and then I saved the boards and the speakers and stuff on there. I don't know what I've done with them, but I've got a project for those little speakers. The LEDs, the backlight, those are probably still good. That's a fairly small TV. I've got two or three here that they work, except the LEDs are burned out on them. I thought there's one like a 55 inch, 60 inch, something like that. That Amazon went like $60 for the LEDs. I need to go back through and see if that TV's been sitting there about 5 years. I'm not sure quite what I'm gonna do with it. I'm using the steel backing piece as a shelf. I may just leave it like that. I've got looking at them right now, two sitting right over there that LEDs are bad on them. Maybe I can save the LEDs on that TV that the screen's broken on, and use the LEDs on something else. I don't know if they take them out and reuse them, or if by the time you take them out, you've ruined them. I don't know. Let me show you some of these LEDs. Now, these are just regular indicators. Now, there was a company, if I can, hang on, show you these. But there's a company that had these 5-pound mystery boxes for like $20, and I got two or three of those. In fact, I've got some of those on YouTube for 2 or 3 years back, where I just opened some of those and sorted through the parts. I don't remember how to label them, but they're here on YouTube from several years back. Those ICs are 741s. I got those off Amazon. They had those 100 of them for $5 or something. So I've got some of the little LM386s, little amplifier ICs, but I'd hooked them up and they just didn't work. People commented, because they were cheap, like 20 of them for $2 or something. So most of them are probably junk. They probably don't work. Sometime I'm gonna sort through and see if I can find one or two that do work. That's what the people said that commented on it. Remember that I said most of them that work, they had to sort through to get good ones. But anyway, on the light emitting diodes, I remember when I was a kid, back in the early '60s, there's an article in Electronics magazine where they was talking about light emitting diodes. Now, I said, why would they want a diode to emit light? I was thinking of like signal diodes, like a little 1N34, or a power rectifier like the 1N 4004s, like that. Those are more newer diodes, but I was thinking of signal diodes and power diodes, and not as an indicator. The thing I want to now, a number of people have light emitting diodes. Now I'm trying to find a dark emitting diode. Now those are hard to find. Now there was an article in like in the mid '80s, like Radio TV Experimenter, like the April Fool's edition, where they was talking about a project using dark emitting diodes. But I can't find any place that sells dark emitting diodes. Let's see. I was going to cover one more thing here besides dark emitting diodes. Well, I may use those speakers from that TV for a signal tracer. I wanted to build me a signal tracer for some time. I can just put two speakers together, put maybe about a 20-watt amplifier in there, and have pretty good signal. I've got two tube type shortwave receivers that sometime I need to go through. I'll probably just go through and then replace the power capacitors on there, and see what I can do with it. I won't mess with the front end capacitors like the RF section, but just go through the power capacitors and then energize it and see if it'll work. One of them was actually given to me. I just found it on my by my front door. It just appeared there. I'm thinking a neighbor had left it there. He knew that I kind of dabble with old electronics. And the other one I found, I took some scrap metal. There's a scrap metal place here in town. I'd taken some scrap metal over there, and I saw it sitting there. Obviously, they were saving it, because they knew it was an antique. And I gave them like $5 for it or something. Even not working, I can turn it on and the tubes all light up, but it doesn't, there's no sound out of it. Even not working, I could probably put it on eBay and get $100 for it. just put that it's restorable, not working restorable, and I'm sure somebody would give me $100 for it, just as a as a repairable antique. Now a guy had, um, how do I describe this? It's a tube type shortwave receiver. These there's some vacuum. They use vacuum tubes. They had I'm trying to think of the tube that they used. This guy had one. Asked me if I could restore it, and at the time I told him I'm not sure what happened to it. If I'm hoping somebody didn't junk it. I'm hoping somebody has it somewhere and understands what it is. Now there's some of these tubes you could. They had tubes that would you could heat the filaments would be like volt and a half or 3 volts, so you could power them from like a couple of D batteries, and for the plate circuits for the they were like 90 volts or 145 volts. You could power this thing from a couple of batteries. It was made to be used that way. There was a handful of old radios that were built like that, that you could just power them from a couple of batteries. That's back in the good old days of electronics, when electronics was easier to understand. Vacuum tubes. We didn't have all this surface mount stuff. Now I wouldn't even touch anything surface mount. SMA. There's people that specialize in that, but not me. I'm more an old school electronics guy. Back from I was a kid when that was around. Anyway, love you. Let's keep life interesting and exciting. Hey, and if something happens to me, my daughter and my friends that hang out here can sort through my stuff. If something happens to me, hey, my daughter Laura, I hope you realize that some of the stuff I've got here is worth something. And just don't toss it in the trash. Try to figure out what it's worth. If you can't fix it, give it to somebody that can. Okay, love y'all. Let's keep life interesting. Bye-bye.